Welcome to the Bold Money Revolution podcast. This is your source for straight talking, no fluff, business and high performance conversations that add real depth and value to the way bold leaders live, work, and thrive. I'm your host, Tara Newman. I'm here to show you how to optimize your performance as a leader so that you can grow a business that is profit-rich, efficient, and allows you to generate real, tangible wealth for yourself and others. We are here to help you lead with your values, to perform without overwhelm and burnout, and to do your most important work in the world. Hey, bold leaders. Welcome to this episode of the Bold Money Revolution podcast. I have Danielle Dinkelman here with me today, and I couldn't be more excited to be talking to Danielle. She is a health and wellness coach specializing in plant-based nutrition, and she is the author of the book, If Diets Don't Work, What Does? A doable, enjoyable guide to living the life you want. And Danielle says that she believes that women shape the world, which I love because I have that in common with Danielle. And then she goes on to say, but when we are held back by our health, whether that be chronic fatigue, mental health, aches and pains, depression and anxiety, or other health problems, we can't fully show up in the way that we want. And I think that really leads into why I wanted to have Danielle on the podcast to have this conversation. She is a member of the Bold Profit Academy. She's been in there for about 6 months. And when I reached out to her, I said, I'm just really inspired by you. I'm inspired by how you show up. And I think we hear people say show up, but we don't know what that means or looks like. So I really wanted to have Danielle come on and talk about that because I think she embodies it so well. And the other thing that is important to note is that she has 4 kids, right? So she's showing up. She's got a full plate. She's got 4 kids. I know her long enough to know that she is deeply committed to doing the depth work, and it's not just surface level. And so really, I wanted to have this conversation around showing up for yourself, taking action and feeling good, and then how that all kind of intersects with money. So welcome, Danielle.
Thank you, Tara. I'm so happy to be here. Let's do this.
Yeah. I'd love to know, what does showing up mean to you or look like to you? Can you kind of give examples or make that kind of concrete for people?
Yeah, I definitely think that it's a term that we throw around and that we use a lot. I know both you and I use that term a lot. I've been practicing as a health and wellness coach for a while now, and I have clients that really show up and I have clients that don't.
Mm-hmm.
So in answer to that question, to me, it comes back to authenticity and vulnerability.
Mm-hmm.
Those things of, not only are you in the room, but you're participating and you're willing to,
Mm-hmm.
you're willing to open up, you're willing to go deep. You're willing to question your own status quo. You're teachable. There's a humility and a willingness to grow. And I think that we need that in business, and we also need that in health.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of truth to that. And I remember when I was working in corporate, and I remember hearing someone say, showing up is just like, 90% of the work. And I was like, well, what do you mean? And they're like, well, getting people to actually show up for work, like be present, be reliable, and be dependable. And I think that there is a lot of truth to that. And people, that level of presence that, people don't necessarily, they take for granted.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
it's kind of it's a form of like self-integrity,
mm-hmm.
I think.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And, I noticed that, the women who get the best results in the Bold Profit Academy are the ones who come to the calls. I mean, some people might be listening to the calls because we do have them on replay. And certainly if they listen to the calls, that is also helpful. But they, they're committed. They put that time aside on their calendar. They, have some boundaries around, what's important to them, what their goals are. You said vulnerability, I'll say accountability and responsibility.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's women, it's easy to not do that, actually. I think it's easy because we have so many other things. I'll speak for myself. I
Might be
have
able to
so
chime
many
in here too.
I have so many other things on my plate.
Sure.
I'm 45. I am officially in that sandwich generation where usually my mom, not so much my dad, but requires some support and care. And then I've got my kids and I've got the business and I've got myself, and my husband owns his own business, and right. And it's easy to sacrifice self. You must see that a lot.
Oh gosh, yes. Yeah. You and I are both huge fans of Greg McKeown's book, Essentialism, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Almost every single time I meet with a new client and they tell me, well, I know I want to do better in the way that I'm eating, and I know I need to exercise more. And I'm just not sleeping well, and I'm not sure why. And I'm stressed out of my mind, and I'm not sure why. For me, I just see through all of that, and it just boils down to, dang girl, you've got way too much on your plate. And sometimes we don't have, you can't always say no to your mom, or you can't always say no to your kids, but gosh darn it, there are plenty of times when we can say yes, but not right now. Or, it's those boundaries, and it's that essentialism of really finding the more of less. And another aspect that I think you do a beautiful job speaking to, Tara, is this this idea of being a recovering overachiever.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm raising my hand here. Those of us that are overachievers or trying to recover from that, it's so hard for us to say no. It's so hard for us to let other people down, because we almost have this, I'm going to go psychological here. We have an outward reference point of our worth and our value,
Mm-hmm.
right? So if we can say, you know what, I am an intrinsically valuable being because I am a being, and that's enough. And now I'm going to ask myself, what do I need? And how can I show up for myself first, and then show up for my family, my business, these other responsibilities? It has to come from that starting point instead of the outward starting point. Don't you think?
Yeah. Oh, yes. So I remember when my kids were really young, I don't know, I just really figured it out early on that I was not going to be able to do it all. And it was really crushing trying to navigate kids and be at the office at a certain time, having dropped the kids off at daycare on the way, and all these things. And I remember setting for myself like a priority list, and it was my relationship with God or something higher powered, my relationship to myself, my relationship to my husband, and my relationship to my kids was last. And work wasn't even on there. But I mean, like, my relationship to my kids were less. And I remember, like, I would talk to other moms about this and get so much flack. They're like, well, what do you mean your kids are last? And I was like, well, listen, if I'm not connected, if I'm not plugged into some kind of source, and if I'm not, navigating self, and I'm not putting some effort into my relationship with my husband, my kids are done.
Yeah, they don't stand a chance.
They've got a spun out, stressed out, anxious mom who is, in a not great relationship with their dad. Like, what kind of home environment would that create for them? But also realizing how that's really counter culture.
Oh yes, it is. And there is that pressure. Oh, that pressure is so real, so real. Of that, it needs to look a certain way to be that all-star mom, especially. But as you talk about that, of what good would we be to our kids if we didn't have that pecking order? That this comes first, and then this, and then this, and then this. It's the exact. You can extend that one layer further out to our businesses and our clients. And this is why I'm so excited to have this conversation with you, is because, most of us that are in kind of a solopreneur style business, a lot of these are service-based businesses. We we are these people that have these big hearts and we want to
Mm-hmm.
serve and help and lift and empower. And gosh, what good are we to those people if we're not doing all of that for ourselves first? And women especially have the hardest time with this idea. When I tell my clients, look, you have to come first. You have to come even before your husband, even before your kids, even
Mm-hmm.
before your job, because it's that idea of you literally just cannot draw water from an empty well. You just can't. And we ignore this because it is counterculture. And the culture says, no, it's good to be selfless and you need to be served. You're just here to serve. And it's like, yeah, but after, I want to give from my abundance, not give from my depletion.
Yeah.
Right?
I also think that what I'm paying attention to really closely as I develop in my message and how I talk about and how I interact with women and money. And as I take in other perspectives of how women are with money, given that obviously not everybody has my perspective on money, the thing that I have really been paying attention to is how much women have been conditioned to do unpaid labor.
Oh, yeah. Yes. And therefore, we have a really hard time charging what we need to charge for our expertise and the value that we're offering our clients, right? There's a huge block there for sure.
Yeah. And, it was really interesting. Years ago, this woman had contacted me. She wanted to work with me one on one. She she came from a wealthy family, and she was working on some pretty big issues in terms of her career, which she wasn't technically working in. She was staying at home, but she was career oriented. She was very ambitious. She was very goal driven. And I think that she was looking to how to navigate being that person with being this mom who has been staying home and really taking care of the husband's business behind the scenes, including the children, but like big business stuff. And, ultimately it came down to price. And I was like, fine. But the crazy thing is that when I did the math, if she just kind of paid herself like something like $5 an hour, that would have equated to like over a period of time, that would have equated to my fee.
Mhm.
And I know for this person that it wasn't actually about the money, but I remember just doing the math on that for a second because I'm like, it was one of those, it was probably one of the first moments where I was like, wow, we really just aren't great to ourselves.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. It's sad, right? um, what's the word I'm looking for? I want to say we undersell ourselves. We don't think we're worthy. We don't deserve it. It's not okay. There's so much cultural stuff around that. So I think especially for women. So yeah, we can't take for ourselves, and we are also not very good at receiving, and we're also not very good at asking. These are a lot of blanket statements, but culturally I think we can all kind of see how this has shown up for each of us if we think about it. And so if we can shed a light on it, we can say, okay, I'm going to notice this when this comes up next for me, and I'm going to choose differently. I'm going to ask, or I'm going to receive, or I'm going to stand up for myself and say, no, I deserve to take a nap today. I deserve to, whatever that is. It's going to be different for each individual.
Yeah, I think you're really touching upon something in terms of labeling, like labeling what we're feeling, labeling, what we're experiencing and how important that is. I remember, so full disclosure, because I'm always transparent on this podcast. This is not the first time Danielle and I have recorded this podcast. The last time we recorded it, Zoom did a weird thing and I sounded weird. And so I think when we actually recorded this podcast the first time, Danielle, you had made a comment to me about how I think on one of my podcasts, I said, I love money.
Mhm.
And I think this was you. And you said you kind of like needed to hear that, or you were grateful that that was something that I was modeling. And was this you?
Yeah, if I didn't say it, that was definitely my experience.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think you did say that. And it really hit me because, first of all, saying that out loud was something that I had to get really comfortable with. Saying it on the podcast made me nervous, because everybody
Yeah.
takes things so differently. And I'm always like, oh, I don't want to offend anybody. Now I really just don't care as much, 4 years into the podcast. But
Authenticity.
yeah, but I thought that was so valuable for me and for you. Obviously, for me, knowing that we need to say these things out loud
Yes.
as women. We need
Yes.
to talk about it. We need to, Brene Brown says, shine the spotlight on it, right?
Yeah.
You were just doing some labeling of things. And I think that's so critically important for us to start to move forward.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Cause it's like, we don't want to stay in the echo chamber, and we don't want to contribute to the echo chamber of, yeah, this issue of women not being able, or having permission to ask, to take, to receive, to deserve, to want, all of these things. It's like, okay, yeah, well, the only way that's going to change is if a few of us unapologetic women can give some language to it. And so, yes, when you were bold enough to just talk really openly about your money story, and coming full circle and coming to this place of, I love money. Money supports me. I am really good at making money. I'm really good at managing money. I love money. That's very healing. It was healing for me. I've had a very similar money journey to you, and we need to hear more of this from each other. And
Mhm.
that is how we give ourselves permission to break the narrative, right? To change the narrative to something that can actually propel us forward, rather than just keep us circling the drain.
Yeah, and while we're talking about money, the other reason why I wanted to have you on is because when I ask women why they want to make money, what is important to them about making money? So I thought that I was going to hear answers, and I'm not judging anybody in my recapping of my research. I thought I was going to hear things like providing for my family, things like that. And what I was hearing was, first of all, a bunch of people not really sure what purpose their money has. Um,
Mhm.
and if you are not sure what purpose your money has, please go download the revenue goal calculator. I think that'll help give you some clarity and directionality for your money, as well as help you see how much you need to bring in revenue to pay yourself a healthy living and things like that. But a lot of women still see themselves as the extra, the
Mhm.
icing on the cake. There was a lot around financial freedom and independence, which I really understand. But my takeaway from that was that we still don't see ourselves in the role of financial provider.
Mhm.
And we were talking about this in the Bold Profit Academy in some context. We talk about money a lot, like pretty much every call. And and normalizing women having money and wealth is really important, and talking about that is
Yes.
important. And you
Yes.
shared why making money is important to you. And I was like, wow, I really wish that women heard you on this call share that. Would you share that with us today?
Sure. I think this is something that's evolving for me too. Like, even since the time of that call, I think it has continued to evolve. And
Cool.
but I think the main thing is, I do want to look at myself as, and I want to become a business owner that could provide for my family if I
Mhm.
wanted to. Like, that financial independence. And a big part of where that comes from is that we did go through a cancer diagnosis for my husband a few years ago, and that is something that rocks your world. And
Mhm.
even, I mean, now, even though he's quote unquote cancer free, it is a skeleton in our closet that, me as the wife and as the mother, like, I'm 34, and I've got 4 little kids. And the reality dawns on me that at any given point, he could have a recurrence cancer. and it could take him, and I could be a single mom. I could be, I could be alone. And of course we have, life insurance, and we have plans in place. But gosh, that is a wake up call of, hey, me as a woman, I am not on this planet simply to ride on the coattails of my husband. I am here side by side with him. I look at it as,
Mm-hmm.
partnership.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the way our marriage is. And that's also the way that I want to see our finances evolve.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I'm working toward, is that partnership. And to that point that, and I'm even there now, that if something happened this year, I feel like we would be okay, because I'm on a trajectory for that independence and for that ability to provide. And because I have invested in myself incredibly, and I have gained skills and expertise, and I've built a business that I have more ideas for than I have time to execute. But I know over time I can do this and I can support my family. So yeah, that's kind of the backstory for me with that.
Can confirm all these things are true. Yeah, so it makes me incredibly, I think, I have to really watch my stuff around this conversation. I'm just going to be really transparent. Like, I have to watch my stuff around this conversation because it's 2021 and we still have an incredible amount of women who are not financially empowered.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them have made a choice to stay home. That's their calling. I'm absolutely not judging that. And at the same time, I've heard stories where something happens to the man, the husband, the primary financial providing partner, and the woman has been out of the workforce for 10, 15 years raising kids. And it's bleak. Like,
it is.
I'm so glad you say you have insurance, because this is usually not how the stories that I hear go. And, it's devastating to me that we're still in this place. And I remember, my kids are older than yours. They're 12 and 15. And I really struggled with making the decision about, becoming a mom, when to become a mom, like what's the best time in my career, and all those things. But I never really thought that, like, 'cause for me, it was always like an either or. But, as I've stepped into owning my own business and I watch the women in my programs navigate motherhood and business ownership, it's really both and. Like, we don't have to sacrifice our financial independence because we're a mom.
Yeah. Yeah. There's so many directions I want to go from here. There's so many ideas that are coming to my brain right now. One, this idea of becoming a person that could be a primary provider, or that is a primary provider. It's about money, but it also, for me, it goes hand in hand with self-development. And that's what I see. Most of my clients are stay-at-home moms.
Mm-hmm.
And I have seen them literally put themselves on the shelf for 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
So, some of my clients, I don't meet them until they're 40, 50, even 60 years old, and they've been on the shelf that long.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, I'm with you. I'm looking at this. We're in 2021, people. As women, we have to wake up, and we have to realize that it's not, motherhood doesn't have to be this 150% self-sacrifice, because it actually doesn't even end up serving you or your family in the long run.
Yeah, that's such a great point. And I always ask the women in the Bold Profit Academy a question. It's usually it's around marketing that they've been consuming, but who benefits from you having that belief?
Oh yeah.
Right? Who benefits from the belief that women, their only purpose or their sole, I get that being a mom is incredibly enriching and all those things, but that's the only thing that can enrich us. That's the only thing that can fuel us. That's, who benefits from that thinking?
The patriarchy. I'll
Yes.
say it.
Yeah. And I was just having this conversation with another client today. I don't know about anybody else, but I feel like I have really become maybe I've become overly sensitive to it. I feel a rise in anti-female sentiment. I feel a rise in misogyny. And I don't think that's actually happening. I think that we just are in a time where saying the quiet things out loud is acceptable now.
Mm.
And people are just more comfortable being anti-female. And the things that I'm reading in the news, I do follow the news. I do follow politics. That's, kind of a passion of mine to some degree. And the news that I'm seeing, if it isn't a battle cry to women to start clawing out some of the resources, financial resources we have in this world, I don't know what is, because our daughters are watching.
Yeah, absolutely. I have 3 sons and 1 daughter, and she is, how old is she? 9. And honestly, I think me owning a business and growing a business and working toward that ability to be a sole provider, if when I need to or when I feel like it, I'm doing that for her. And
Mm-hmm.
so many people do kind of pit us in this either or. You have to be a full-time stay-at-home mom, or if you're a career woman, then you're by default you're going to be a terrible mother. Oh man, I have grappled with that dialogue for the last 3 years, and I've really come to the conclusion that I'm a better mom
Mm-hmm.
for running a business because it forces me to be an essentialist. It
Mm-hmm.
forces me to have boundaries, not only around my own time and my own energy and my own self-care, but also in how I am showing up, how I am choosing to parent my children. My children, they are learning to be independent,
Mm-hmm.
because guess what? This mom does not do every single little thing for them. I am not a helicopter mom. I am not a rescuer. I let my children fall down and I let them pick themselves up. And I'm there, to put the band-aids on and kiss their cheeks and send them on their way. But it makes me a better mom because I have to find those balance points and those boundaries, but it's letting them stand on their own 2 feet. And I don't get my value as a woman or a mother from my children being dependent on me, like in an extreme,
Yeah.
disordered way. So it's good for my kids in so many ways, but especially for my daughter. I don't want to be modeling that old paradigm of, yeah, our sons, your brothers are supposed to grow up and they need to go get steady work because they're going to provide for a family. And, oh, you just go do whatever's fun, and you'll just marry somebody and he'll take care of you. I am done with that dialogue. Like, let's promote a partnership paradigm. Let's promote a individual self-development paradigm for boys and girls.
Yeah.
It's so important.
My daughter's 12 and she's very aware that there are potential. Um, so there was this really horrible news article. I'm not going to go into it, but it was about something that happened to a woman in the army, and you could just take it from there in your own
Mm-hmm.
heads. And it was the most atrocious thing I ever read. And I read a lot of atrocious things. And I got really concerned for my daughter's safety. And I, starting to second guess myself. And should we, she's a soccer player. But I said to my husband, I'm like, I don't know. I think she needs to go to karate. And my husband's like, well, she could take like a weekend self-defense class. I'm like, no, she needs to figure out, she needs to be able to kill someone with her bare hands. And that takes time and mastery. Like, I was really like in a state after reading this article.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, at a minimum, I need to start a conversation with her about her own personal safety.
Yeah.
And she says to me, hey, Mom, is this a conversation you're having with my brother?
Ooh.
And I'm like,
Mm. Mm-hmm.
she's like, and I was like, no. And she's like, that's what I thought. And I was like, oh
Wow.
man, like,
She got you.
they get it. Right.
Mm.
But back to what you were saying about, being a mom and having a business, I think that it's really valuable for your kids to not be the sole receiver of all of your energy and
Yeah.
hopes and dreams and all those things. I think there's a lot of pressure to put on a kid. And I know that both my children have benefited tremendously. I think they're real because I did both. I left the house to work and then I quit and I came home. I work from home now, running my business and for the last 7 years. And I think that has been a better education for them than even school.
Mm. Them being able to see you, being on the sidelines.
Hear me, see me, see how we've been able to advance and progress as a family and the things that we're
Yeah.
able to do because, I'm making money. I'm,
Yeah.
I'm providing as well. I think it's a really important message to be sending. I wanted
Yeah.
to ask you a question around money and self-care. Now, I'm not going to listen, I believe this isn't about the cost of self-care. I think, my best self-care costs nothing. And that's just
Mhm.
my opinion. I'm sure. How do you feel about that?
I'm kind of on the fence. Like, I'm very willing to spend money on myself in the name of self-care. I think I've shared with you, like, I pay for daycare so
Mhm,
that I can go play pickleball with my friends once a
mhm,
week, sometimes
mhm.
twice a week. So, yes, I spend money on my self care. I get a massage every single month. When I was writing my book, I got one every other week because I knew my body was going to need it. And sometimes, yes, the best self care is it doesn't cost anything. For me, the best self care is often something that, okay, what can I do that is literally not productive? Because
Right.
that old like the recovering overachiever brain kicks in and says, no, 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 you can't sit and do a puzzle. No, 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 you can't take a bubble bath. No, you can't go on a walk. Like all these things that they don't cost anything, but they also don't produce anything. That overachiever brain says that's not good enough. But I have to come in and say, yes, it is. This is what refreshes me. This is what energizes me. This is
Yeah.
what helps me recover. So I think it's both
Yes.
and.
Yes. No, I'm with you on that. I'm with you on the both and for sure. I think what saved me in the last year was the fact that I can find a tremendous amount of self-care in things that don't cost money, that I don't have to go anywhere and do, right? Like
Yeah.
some of my own practices that I can provide for myself. But my question
Mhm.
is really around how I feel like for me, wanting, desiring money, having money, doing my most meaningful work and getting paid for it, that feels like self-care to me.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. It does. It's self affirming, it's self developing, it's letting yourself take up space in the world. And I think that's part of this issue, the cultural issues we see is that women, like children, at one point were really meant to be seen and not heard. Like, be
Mm,
there, do
my
everything for
God.
me,
I
but
just
don't
heard my
take up space.
grandfather. That was my grandfather.
It's a real thing, right?
It is a
and
real
and
thing.
no one says that anymore. We're very much like children have value and we protect them and whatever, but really, are we allowing ourselves? There's so many like cultural underpinnings that it's never said out loud, but it's this assumption and it's this cultural thing that we're not allowed to take up space, we're not allowed to consume, we're not allowed to take things, get things. You and I, we've talked about desire, we've talked about pleasure, and these things that, like, oh my gosh, those are such buzzwords for
Oh,
women. And I have been
trigger
doing a lot of
words.
personal work on those trigger words because I was very much raised in a culture that neither of those things were okay. And that is a process. And, those words, here's the thing. When you desire something, here, one of my favorite things, I learned this from You're a Badass at Making Money, Jen Sincero. She talks about the Latin root of the word desire. It's de sire, which is of the father, right?
Mhm.
So for me, I believe in God, but I think that the principle is the same. It comes from goodness. It comes from a higher place, right?
Mhm.
So that shifted everything for me when I could connect that with my faith and integrate that to my desire for goodness, that I can also desire a beautiful car for me to drive, that I can also desire a comfortable home and a safe neighborhood, that I can desire extra income to go on quarterly retreats with my husband. These create goodness. And I think that's where, as women, we can give ourselves permission to desire, because more often than not, I would say 99.9% of the time, your desires are coming from a good place, and they're going to create more goodness in yourself, in your family, in your clients, in your community. Like, that's something that's beautiful and unique about women. I think gosh, I could just go off on this all day, Tara. I'm sorry, but I think a lot of the stigma around the word desire comes from biblical roots. And I think that message was mainly for men. I'm sorry, I'm going to say it. It
Mm-hmm.
was mainly for men. But
Mm-hmm.
here's the thing that's so wonderful about women: our nature is a little different. Our nature is to give, our nature is to nurture. And that doesn't go away. And so we can trust our desires more. And that's what I often challenge my clients to do, is to, when they notice a desire that they have and they quickly shut it down, and, I want to sleep better. I want a nap every day. I want to not feel so tired. But then they excuse it away so quickly, and they don't water it. They don't say that that's okay. They don't give it credence. But if they did, I invite them to look at all the goodness that it creates. Well, if I take a nap, I'm more cheerful when my kids come home from school.
Mm-hmm.
If I take a nap, I feel like having a connected conversation with my husband when he comes home.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it creates goodness to desire for yourself, and to even take pleasure in those things that you desire for yourself. It is okay. Okay, that's
Yeah.
my soapbox. Sorry.
Yeah. Well,
Sorry, not sorry.
like all Eve wanted was an apple and everything went to shit after that, right? Like, she didn't even want money. She didn't even want Adam to like take care of the kids. She wanted a freaking apple.
Yeah. Yeah. We can take the charge off of these words, and we can peel the layers back, and we can question these things and actually see that they actually create goodness.
What's been your best lesson let's go Q1. What was like your best lesson in Q1 around money?
Ooh,
Totally sprung this on you, so take some time.
you sure did. Okay, I'm going to think about this for a minute. I can make it easier than I thought.
Mm-hmm.
Clients come easier than I thought.
Mm-hmm.
I can manage it better than I thought.
Mm-hmm.
And I can use my money to get the things that I desire.
Mm-hmm.
In Q1, I've been driving a 2012 Toyota Sienna, total minivan mom vehicle, right? And in this last, I would say 6 months to a year, I have declared to the heavens, I am no longer in harmonious vibration with this minivan. And I really, really wanted to move to something different. And we had been thinking about it and planning it and trying to, make the money make sense for it for a while. And we went into car shopping mode with the thought and intention that, okay, my business is really starting to pick up. Okay, on this trajectory, we'll be able to pay cash for our next vehicle if we wait another year, maybe year and a half. Okay. But we wanted to decide what vehicle it was going to be. Okay. So I won't go into too much detail, but basically I found myself really wanting a really nice vehicle. Okay. I wanted a luxury level mid-size SUV. And we shopped it out, and I found the car that I wanted. I was in harmonious vibration with this thing. And I made enough money in Q1 to show myself and my husband that this would make sense, and that it would be okay to not wait, but to go ahead, finance the car and get it now. Because I believe in vibration, right? I believe in this, and for me individually, it's very, my energy is very sensitive, that if I surround myself with good things, nice things, a clear, comfortable, clean space, I can create even more in
Yep.
my life. Like, it is so powerful.
I'm the
And
same.
so I told my husband, I was like, I really think that if we get this car, I think my business will just grow more, and I think that you'll get promotions and things will just happen. Like, I just think that it's okay for us to do this. So we did it. And I've been driving this vehicle for a couple months now, and I love it. It supports me. It supports me in having that higher vibration, and it supports me in up leveling the rest of my world, is in some material ways, but some non-material ways, right? In just that refinement that we want to put ourselves through of up leveling. Anyway, so that was really amazing to me in Q1 that I gave myself permission to purchase a vehicle, and I'm paying half of the payment. My business is paying half of the payment, my CEO pay. And that is so ridiculously satisfying. So we went up to Washington to visit my family over spring break, and I pulled up in this gorgeous vehicle. And, I did not come for money. My dad has struggled his whole life, and I was raised very like lower middle class. So I bring this vehicle home, and, everybody's jaw is dropping, and they look at Blaze and they say, wow, Blaze, what a nice vehicle you bought for Danielle. And every single time, I think I had about 7 opportunities to correct them and say, actually, this is my car. It's our car. I'm paying for half of it. And they're like, oh, cool. Good for you. I have 5 brothers. Okay. So it was a thing. It was a thing.
And I have to really acknowledge you, because so Danielle is such an action taker. So before she even joined the Bold Profit Academy, she would respond to my emails. Aren't I nice in emails? Shouldn't more people respond to my emails?
Gosh, Tara, I still get your emails, even though I'm already in your program, and I still want to reply. And I'm like, okay, I'm really not going to waste this woman's time. I really don't, but like, you really do write beautiful emails, and they are so honest and raw, and I love them. I love the conversations that you start in there. So it shocks me that people don't respond. So anyone that gets Tara's emails, like, she really does reply, and she really does want to hear from you, and not even just to sell her programs. Like, she cares about humans and people. So just reply to the email.
For sure. So I remember like Danielle just being such an action taker, and she's replying to my emails, and I'm like, wow, this woman really like is standing out from the crowd. I mean, like, I get a handful, people reply, but you were like replying with like the actions you were taking. And I remember I have a podcast episode about the 5 belief habit, and I remember you responding with your 5 beliefs, just like you did right now, right? Like when I was like, you were like, oh, like, and you just gave me beliefs, right? You just knocked them out. You're like, here they are. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then I remember, you'd be like, I want to join. I'm coming.
Save me a seat.
Coming. Not,
Yep.
soon. Right. And we had a number of these conversations, right? And you were genuinely preparing. You didn't want to bite off more than you could chew financially. You were being very discerning about coming into the program, which I always appreciate when you come into my emails. This is not about hard selling. And I even said to you, I'm like, I appreciate your discernment. I appreciate that this is, a big deal for you right now. And then you joined us, and it's been like a rocket ship. And I'm not saying that's because of the Bold Profit Academy at all. I'm saying it's because you take action.
Yeah.
And you show up for yourself.
Yeah. I'm in this not just to grow my business, Tara. I'm in this to grow myself. I look at growing my business as it's my own personal development program.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm an extremely highly qualified and skillful coach, but I cannot coach myself.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Great coaches cannot coach themselves because human beings cannot see their own blind spots. Okay. And we cannot ask ourselves the questions that we're unwilling to ask, but someone else can. In this last call, you asked me a question that I was not willing to ask myself.
Oh, what I asked you?
You asked why my revenue goal number You
Right,
asked
right,
me
right.
point blank. And that, oh man.
Yeah, I did notice you kind of were like a little like, oh.
But how did I respond?
Mhm. No, you were
I
you were incredibly
responded.
honest.
I was incredibly like, I mean, I that was extreme vulnerability for me.
Mhm.
Extreme. And I was like on a vulnerability hangover for the rest of the day. Like my girlfriend came over and she's like, "Why are you laying on the couch?" I'm like, "I just had this real call, okay?" so so here's what I'm saying is I was looking for an extremely highly qualified, skillful, mindful coach and someone that was extremely skilled and savvy when it came to business. And you checked both of those boxes. And that's why I replied to the emails. And I have been on a personal development journey where I have done a lot of energetic work. Okay. And I'm extremely well versed when it comes to this idea of the power of limiting beliefs and mindset work. And so your approach just resonated with me so powerfully. So, and you know what? It's just been more of the same. And, when we were driving up to spring break, we were having a call in the Bold Profit Academy. And I used my data on my cell phone so that I could call into this call because I know that every time I show up for that call, even if I'm not like speaking up or getting my questions answered or whatever, I walk away with inspiration, with empowerment, and I take action on those things because I take it seriously that like there's a reason this showed up for me today. There's a reason
Yeah.
somebody said that and then it really like struck a chord. It's business development, but it's also personal development. And that's one of my favorite things about you, your work and your program is that you're there for all of it. And it's not either or, it's not like this little slice, this piece of us as business owners and as women. It's the whole picture. And it's just powerful. I love it. So thank you.
Thank you. And I want to say, I've certainly been in your shoes where I've had a vulnerability hangover. As a matter of fact, I was on a first call with a mentor that I just hired, and there's a few of us, and one of the women had started the call crying, and she was like apologizing, and I'm like, heck, I'm usually the one crying on the call. So go ahead, right? Like we've all kind of had those moments, and to your point about like even if you are not the one who's asked the question and having your question answered, there's so much that you get out of it. I mean, I know that you asking that question had such a profound impact on everybody else who was listening. And as we were kind of talking about it, so, it's important when we show up, we don't just show up for ourselves, we show up for the people around us. When we have the courage to ask a question, other people benefit too. It's like
Yep.
vulnerability is this superpower where it serves everybody.
It does. It does. I did not actually want to send those questions to you. You had like a call for questions, right? For the
Yeah.
office hours call, it's kind of like a Q&A sort of thing. But we have to submit the questions. And I did it like the morning of, which I'm like, oh, she's totally not going to get to these. Like this is safe. This is safe for me to ask these really personal, really transparent questions around my business and around my money. And we get in the call. And of course, Tara's like, Danielle, we're going to start with you. And I'm like, oh, shit.
I'm like, I believe I was like, Danielle asked a really good question. So we're gonna dig in. I appreciate good questions for sure. And blah, blah, blah.
It takes the courage, right? And you know what? Like, it takes courage to be coached.
Yeah.
It's so vulnerable. And I acknowledge this in every single one of my clients that choose to come and work with me. I acknowledge them for being willing to get on a call and do a free consult with me to talk with a complete stranger and to like lay their crap on the table. Like, but that is the place that we have to come to if we want to go to the next place.
Mm-hmm.
So, whether it's business coaching or health coaching or like whatever it is that people need, like there are qualified people out there and you're one of them and I'm one of them, like, so go get the help, do the work.
I think that after you have that moment though, it's so freeing afterwards.
Mhm.
Like you take
Yeah.
that action, you ask the question, you book the call, you join the thing, and there's a release, and then you feel good. And that's
Yeah.
really hard to explain because I think we freeze
Yeah. We
right
doubt.
before, right? Like right before we take the action that's going to make us feel better.
Right. And you may not feel better right away. Like I said, I mean, me curled up in the fetal position on the couch right after that call, you know, it's okay. It's okay to like take a leap in the dark. Another thing I've heard you say before is that you always get a return on your investment.
Heck yeah.
Like when, whether it's courses or coaching or whatever it is, like always get a return on your investment. And that's something that I've adopted for myself. I always get a return on my investment. I do not invest in things and then not show up for them, which is why you see me showing up the way that I am in the academy. So, and I see that in my coaching clients too. It's like, okay, I'm not like, this isn't a small fee that they're choosing to pay to work with me, but it's worth it because it calls them to show up at that level and to say, you know what, I'm here for this work. I'm here to be courageous. I'm here to be vulnerable. I'm here to be teachable. You know, good
Yeah.
things come from that. Good things
Yeah,
come
I
from
think
that.
investing in yourself is also self-care. And what I want to say to that,
Yes.
because I know that it's not always accessible to people to invest in themselves, but if because I think people, you know, say like, oh, well, investing in myself, that's money. But you can invest time and you can
Oh,
invest
yeah.
energy and you can invest an appropriate amount of money for you at the time that you're investing. It doesn't
Yeah.
have to be, you know, a big amount or like the VIP thing. As a matter of fact, I'm always like, don't buy the VIP thing first. Like maybe try something that is more appropriate to your budget and see how that goes. But
Yeah.
definitely when you do it, show up with with the belief that you will get the result that you want.
Definitely. You won't be disappointed. Yeah.
So as we kind of roll ourselves out of here, what's your message for women today?
The words that come to my mind are step up.
Mm,
Like, step up and step in. You have permission. If you've been waiting for someone to give you permission to step into your power, to step into your desires, to step into your own needs, and to have that self respect, to have needs and desires, and to ask others to give you that self respect, I give you permission. Okay. It's nothing but good will come from that. And I think that we can give ourselves permission to take those steps and that we can trust ourselves.
oh,
We are so discerning, we are wise, we are careful,
mhm.
and it's okay. It's okay to take some steps here. So step up.
Yeah. I know a lot of people need to hear that message. And Danielle, where can they find you? Where can they find this amazing book that you've written? Where can they find support in a plant-based diet?
So DanielleDinkelman.com. You can find all of my stuff there. The book is, I'm going to be really honest, it's really powerful. Like the goal of this book was to put coaching in a book form so that someone could coach themselves. And that is what I accomplished with this book, which is, as you know, that is not an easy task because coaching is so personal, it's so interactive. But I'm extremely proud of this book. It is interactive, it has journal prompts at the end of every single chapter. And while I specialize in plant based nutrition, there's a bigger specialty here, which is start where you are and take the next step in any aspect of healthy living. So in the book, we talk about sleep, nutrition, exercise, stress management, and mindset. Every single human on this planet needs at least one of those to improve, right? For a
Yeah.
quality of life to
And I'm
improve.
I'm
So,
gonna really I'm gonna really encourage everybody to go and buy the book, support a woman in business, support a woman who is confidently putting her expertise out into the world. If it's not necessarily your cup of tea. I bet you know somebody who would also really value that book, and you can gift it to them. But we need to start paying women. We need to start paying content creators. We need to start paying people who are putting their expertise out in the world. It's up to us to create this economy for each other.
I believe that.
Danielle, thank you so much for coming by.
Thank you, Tara.
If you found this podcast valuable, help us develop more bold leaders in the world by sharing this episode with your friends, colleagues, and other bold leaders. Also, if you haven't done so already, please leave a review. I consider reviews like podcast currency, and it's the one thing you can do to help us out here at the Bold Leadership Revolution HQ. We would be so grateful for it. Special thanks goes to Stacey Harris from Uncommonly More, who is the producer and editor of this podcast. Go check them out for all your digital marketing and content creation needs. Be sure to tune into the next episode to help you embrace your ambition and leave the grind behind.